Alright, in this video I want to talk about the Golden Eagle. You might have seen the Golden Eagle, such as behind Donald Trump and a couple of his speeches or declarations or what have you. And that is because the Golden Eagle actually represents the phoenix. And I wanted to talk about it because of what I believe the occult is saying with the phoenix. Because they talk about rising from the ashes. Right? So they believe in this constant rebirth, kind of like reincarnation, right? So they don't believe in necessarily a eternal life in the same way that a Christian would, where you would be immortal with the one life that never dies. They believe it in a sense of a constant being born again. And you can see this with something I brought up in passing in another video about Satan running Babylon, for example, and then it being destroyed, and then he takes over using Medo-Persia, right? And then when that country runs its course, he jumps to Greece and then to Rome, right? And then we see Islam and England and briefly there Russia and Germany, and then we have America, right? So we see a rebirth of Satan's kingdom over and over. Matter of fact, you can look at America and its architecture and style of government, and it's very much a Greco-Roman style of government and architecture, even using the same kind of depiction of their deities, right? So it's just a constant rising out of the ashes of the previous kingdom, right? But each time it does, it's worse and worse. It's inferior to the previous. That's why in Daniel's statue it's gold, silver, bronze, iron, and then iron and clay, where it gets to the point where it's just it's starting to get to a point where it can't get any lower, or it can't get any more weak, right? And we can also see this not only with some of the teachings I was talking about, such as reincarnation, but even some of these ideas that these politicians and even actors, actresses, and what have you, basically using something like adrenochrome to stay young, or even reversing aging. So it's kind of like a reincarnation in a sense. If you really buy into the Fittest Flat Earthers videos, now his doctrine is way off, but his ideas of these people somehow restarting their lives has some merit to it, because what are the chances of these people not only looking alike but having the same scars and birthmarks? It's quite interesting, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you'll have to check it out for yourself, because you kind of have to see it for yourself to believe it, or even to entertain the idea. Such as, I'll do a simple one that you may find comical, but Elvis actually being Donald Trump. But you can go take a look at that for yourself and decide for yourself if that makes any sense to you. It's not the main focus of the video here. But so these occultists would believe in the rising from the ashes. So even though they start to bring about this one world, new world order, and it's destroyed by Jesus, they would still hold off hope of rising from the ashes, especially when Jesus returns and he binds Satan for 1,000 years. There's probably going to be this pit open. In Jesus' day, they had this place called Gehenna where it was just this trash heap. And Jesus used it as a depiction to let people understand hell and how it's constantly burning like a tire fire. And when Jesus returns, the earth would be opened up, and instead of having Gehenna where you have this just blaze of fire, it would be a pit where you could look down into hell and see everyone burning. All right, so it's, turned to ash in a sense, right? But that's where the phoenix rises up from. And that would be what I think some of the survivors of the Great Tribulation that live when Jesus returns would still be occultists, and they would pass on this knowledge to their children, or at least certain ones, letting them know the phoenix will rise from the ashes, right? It'll be some kind of like Hunger Games Mockingjay rebellion kind of thing. And that's why after the 1,000 years, when Satan is let loose, he's able to deceive the nations, because I think a good lot of them are like weeds. They really grown up, and they basically acted like we see Muslims do today, where when they're the minority or they don't have the power, they act all peaceable, and they want peace and minority rights and all that. But as soon as they get the upper hand, they're the complete opposite, and they want to do away with everybody else and take full control, and don't want peace and don't care about minority rights anymore, right? And I believe that's how these occultists would end up being, and that's their whole phoenix rising from the ashes. Just something to think about. Partially speculation. But with that being said, thank you for your time and attention. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.